So today, let's talk about the coming border crisis and what you're not told. So right now, all the Biden bucks, the congressional cash money payments, all of that is kind of interfering with the decision making on the border. Now, that's one aspect of why things are happening the way they are on the border. The other is some large corporations and politicians are involved in bringing low-cost labor across the border. Other corporations and politicians and non-government organizations are involved with bringing large numbers of new voters across the border. And while all this is going on, the people receiving the cash money, they're aligned with forces from around the world that want to move military and economic disruptive forces into the country. Now, that's why nothing is being done. And what most people don't realize is there are contingency plans that were actually practiced in the 1980s on how to handle events like this. The operation in question is Rex 84. So if you look up Rex 84, you'll see that there was a major operation planned. And what this operation did was two things. One aspect is aimed at foreign nationals coming over the border. The other part of the operation was designed to control internal opposition to the war and also gave the military under continuity of government permission to move groups of people around the country against their will. So what this leads to is a zone of control. So if Rex 84 was implemented, it was designed to handle a refugee column of 14 million people coming from Central South America and Mexico across the border into the U.S. following a disastrous war in Central or South America. Now, the contingency operation was planned based on the United States losing the war in Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Guatemala that was being fomented, supported by Nicaragua, Cuba, Soviet Union, and China. So what we had there was a plan where in 72 hours, the Department of Defense, FEMA, and other government agencies would implement a contingency plan where they could open up concentration camps and holding facilities to hold 14 million refugees. Now, the short-term plan was to capture, control, and house these people. The long-term plan was to set up a zone, kind of a forbidden zone along the southern border where they could force Americans to move out of the area so they could control it militarily. So there would have been exclusion zones set up like there were in Rhodesia during the apartheid warfare there. So in Rhodesia, what they did was they evacuated all people out of a 70-kilometer zone near the border, and that way anything moving in that area would be considered an enemy. So a similar situation would have happened in the United States in a similar scenario. In order to control the border, they would have done like they did in Rhodesia and create an exclusion zone maybe to 100 miles. That way any movement in that zone would be considered hostile and could be engaged. So under Rex 84, the contingency programs, there at that point in time there was 14 major concentration camps, and then they had palletized camps on trailers and in warehouses that could be moved to rest stops, schools, parklands, open fields, farms, abandoned buildings that you could set up in 72 hours a concentration camp of various sizes all over the country. Keep in mind, the government has the capacity to stop what's going on at the border and prevent 500,000 people from flowing over if they chose to. And the scary part is everybody ignored the focus of Rex 84 on the American people. Before that time, all the focus was on enemy forces and refugees coming over the border. Rex 84 changed the tone and also focused it on the American people. There's plenty of information you can go and look at that talks about Rex 84. So go ahead and do that. Share your thoughts. Tell me what you think about the exclusion zone that would be formed on the border for combat operations and the capacity to house 14 million people. See you on the next video.